Hello, my pretties. It's the Queen of Lions here. Today, in this episode of Shadows and Pretties, it's episode 143. I am going to be reviewing a movie that I've been kind of wanting to do for a long time, but kind of keep postponing it for whatever reason. I mean, I don't even know, but yeah, I don't even know why. But I decided to review this movie, and this movie is based on a true story about a dog named Balto. Now, this movie came out in 1995, and it's over 25 years old. It's 26 years old. This movie was made in the 1990s, and I'm sure most of us have seen it as a kid. I've seen it on VHS when I was like a really young kid, but it has been a long time though. So it's based on the true story, loosely filmed based on the true story of Balto, who helps save children from infected with diplophobia, which is an infection disease. And this takes place sometime in 1925 serum to run gnome time. So of course, let's just say right now that the live action portions of this film were shot in New York City's Central Park. But of course, with that being said, there were some, stuff in the movie stuff that was based on the true story of Balto, but wasn't in the movie. Now, I will be talking about the actual story of Balto after I refresh this memory of the movie in case if you guys haven't seen the movie in years. Of course, there are two sequels such as Balto Wolf Quest, and which is a sequel that came out in 2002, and Wings of Change, which came out in 2005. I'll probably talk about those maybe in the next video or something, because this I'm mainly covering the first movie. So, anyways, let's get started. So this takes place in New York City when an elderly woman and her granddaughter, in the later Siberian Husky Blaze, were walking through Central Park looking for a memorial as they seated themselves for a rest. The woman tells her granddaughter about the story about the gnome Alaska 70 years earlier in the winter of 1925, shifting from live action to animation. Balto was a young wolf dog who lives in a rural home with his adoptive family, consisting of a snow goose named Boris and a Gusanovi and two polar bears, Muck and Lurk. They're being half wolf. Balto is despised by other dogs and humans, like the only dog and human in town who are kind to them are Jenna, the purebred Siberian Husky, and Rosie, who he is in love with Jenna, but he's often gets bullied by a champion sled dog named Steely, a fierce and arrogant Malamute who has a crush on Jenna as well. One evening, all the children are hospitalized with diplophobia, fern furia or something. I apologize if I don't say the certain disease correctly. I'm really bad when it comes to saying certain words. I know I'm repeating myself, but still. Which Curtis Welch waits to go get the antioxidant. The severe winter weather conditions are preventing the medicine from being brought from Genevu, which is an choice, which is by air or sea. And the closest rail he line ends in a Ninana, which is a dog race to help determined on the best fit for dogs. A sled team gets to the medicine with heading with the ravenousness with train and to transport the antioxidant back to Nome. Balto enters and wins, but Steely exposes his half wolf, causing the disqualification, and the team departs at night with Steely, who held up and picks up the medicine successfully. But on his way back, they end up getting stranded on the base of an icy hill, which is the mushier unconsciousness. When he reaches his new which is Nome, Balto sends out in search for them with Boris, Muck, Luck, and on the way, they get attacked by a massive grizzly bear. But Jenna, who followed marked their trail with intervenes. The bear pursues Balto onto the frozen lake, falling through the ice and drowning in the process, while Muck and Luck save Balto from the similar fate. However, Jenna gets injured and cannot continue. Balto instructs Boris and the polar bears to take her home, while he continues on his own. Jenna gives him her bandana to wear, and Balto eventually finds the team, but Steely refuses his help out of cullishness and attacks Balto, only to fall off a cliff. Balto takes charge of the team, but Steely, refusing to console defeat, spitefully sabotages Balto's marks, and the team loses their way again while attempting to save the medicine from falling down the cliff. Balto himself falls. However, back in Nome, Jenna is explaining to Balto's mission to the other dogs, but when Steely returns claiming the entire team, including Balto and Steely's musher, is dead, using Jenna's bandana as his fake proof, and tell Jenna that Balto made Steely's promise to look after her. Knowing that Balto would never say such a thing, Jenna sees that lies and insists that Balto returns with the medicine. Using a trick that Balto showed her earlier, she places the broken glass bottles on the outskirts of town, shines the lantern over them to simulate the northern lights, hoping that it would guide Balto home. When Balto regains consciousness and he was ready to give up hope, when a polar wolf appears and Balto notices the medicine crate is intact nearby, he realizes this thanks to remembering Boris's advice he told him earlier, that his part wolf heritage has the strength and not its weakness. Balto then rallies up his confidence and drags the medicine back up the cliff to the waiting team. Using his highly developed senses, Balto is able to filter out to the fake marks Steely created. After encountering further challenges and only losing one vial, Balto and the sled team finally make it back to Nome. Steely's exposed as a liar, and the other dogs abandon him in anger and refusing his pleas to explain. Reunited with his friends, Balto earns respect from both dogs and humans. He visits the cured Rosie, and thanks to him for saving her. Back in the present day, the woman and her granddaughter and Blaze finally find Balto's memorial, and she explains that the Alaska runs to the iDog race over the same path that Balto and his team took. The woman, revealed to be elderly Rosie, repeats the same line, "Thank you, Balto. I would have been lost without you," before walking off to join her granddaughter and Blaze. The statue of Balto stands proudly in the sunlight, and thus that the movie ends. Now, I have to say this story was sad at certain parts, but it is a pretty good movie for what this is. I really do find this movie to be quite amazing for what this is, as I like certain characters like well, I do like the character Balto, and I mean it's a pretty good story for how this one really is. I do like the fact that there was like a lot of good concept with this story. I mean, it's a pretty good story for what this is. The production of this movie began in 1989 at Universal City Studios, along with American Tail 5 Goes West, We're Back, A Dinosaur Story. The voice recording sessions took place in the big facilities in London, in Moloko Studios, and was now renamed Bridge Writing Studios. So between late 1992 and early 1993, Brendan Fraser was originally cast to play as Steely because the director Simon Wells had envisioned Steely to be a school quarterback jock carried away sense of importance. It felt that Fraser fitted that personality according to him. But however, though, the executive producer Steven Spielberg wanted a clearer sense of Steely's inherited evil, so Fraser was replaced with Jim Cummings. Wells stated that Cummings did a fantastic job and totally made the character to live, so he didn't regret the choice. So after the actors recording their voices, animated and filming the movie, they have a source of dogs that animated that were, basically about the filmmakers bought in about 7 Siberian Huskies and videotaped them walking around the studio. Now, this is actually a pretty good concept for what this story is. Now, the film's live-action prologue and epilogue segments were filmed in Central Park in the fall of 1994, and the role of elderly Rosie's granddaughter, Husky Blaze, was played by two light red-eyed Siberian Huskies. Now, there is a lot of differences that came with the actual story of Balto and with the movie. Now you know the movie, or probably have refreshed your memory of what the movie is about, let's get on with the actual story of Balto. Now, the film portrays Balto time in here, 1919 and March March 14th of 1933 as a brown and gray husky ski wolf dog. However, in the actual Balto story, he was a purebred Siberian husky and was black and white in color. Balto's colors had changed to brown due to the light exposure while all on display at the Cleveland Museum Natural History. Balto was never an outcast as a street dog, as shown by the original movie, but instead was born in a kennel owned by a famous musher and breeder, Leonhard Seppala, who raised and trained him until Balto was deemed off to be fit for a sled dog. Now, in reality, the sled run retrieved the medicine and actually a relay instead of being the leader in the first and only team. Balto was scheduled to be part of a team led by a dog fox, and his team was Seppa. Now, while being driven by the gunner Kazan, although they were scheduled to hand off the serum to the other team, Kazan then does advance on they usually were the last team to carry off the medicine to Nome. And the longest, most hazardous distance they traveled was 18th and third to last team, which was held by Togo in October 17th of 1913 to December 5th of 1929. However, considerable controversy around Balto's use as a sled lead dog and Kasem's team, including many mushers and officers in no time, Dalpin claims that he truly held the team based on the primary rarely of the dog's track record. It is believed that Balto was co-lead with Seppala's dog, Fox. No record exists of Seppala ever having to use him as a leader in runs or races prior to 1925. So in the film, the reason why Dr. Curtis Welch orders the medicine to be sent to Nome is because his supply was completely run out. But in the actual story, the reason was the entire batch was past the expiration date and no longer had any effect. In the film, the medicine is shipped to Nenana in the Alaskan capital of Juneau, but in reality it was shipped from Anchorage, which is 80 miles southeast of Nome. The medicine was transported in 300,000 unit cylinder, but in the film it's transported in a large square crate. You see right here, it's kind of similar, close to the original movie, but they made some changes to make it more kid friendly in a sense. Like, I know they did this with a lot of, Disney movies and non-Disney movies, and since this one's a non-Disney movie, they made it as kid-friendly as possible. So in the film, only the residents of Nome who contract the disease are 18 children, but in reality, many more were infected, including the adults. But in their reality, none of the mushers were ever knocked unconscious. However, though, in the sequels, Balto becomes Jenna's mate, and they have a litter of puppies who grow up and move on with their lives. But in reality, however, Balto was neutered as a puppy and was constantly never trained or fathered a litter. However, in the sequels, Balto continues living in Nome along with his family and friends. But in reality, Balto and his team were sent to Brookside Zoo, now at Cleveland Metro Park Zoo, in 1927, where they spent their last years. Balto has rested there until his death on March 14th, 1933, at the age of 14. After he died, his body was tax determined to keep in with the Cleveland Museum in the Natural History Museum where it is today. So after the film was released theatrically in December 22nd of 1995, the international theaters sometime in 1996, it first premiered in Brazil in the international version, and the release was overshadowed by Pixar Animation's first film, Toy Story, which had premiered at least a month earlier than this. So, of course, this movie was released on VHS sometime in 1996, and the film was released on DVD sometime in 2002, which includes a game. And of course, they do have a few other This movie was intentionally to be released as a widescreen on Blu-ray, but of course it was released on Blu-ray, sorry, not Blueberry, Blu-ray in 2017. Of course, there are two direct-to-video sequel films made by Universal Cartoon Studios, but unfortunately, none of the actors, well, you know, from the original movie came back to reprise their role. Now, I mean, I really do like how this film Balto is based pretty much on the actual story, but they do make some changes, as to, this movie. But after, that there's the statue of Balto that presents his memorial for the stuff he did, which of course you could find it in Central Park in New York City, and that's where the Balto statue is standing. So if you're in New York City, you can go there and go to Central Park Zoo near the intersection of East Drive and 67th Street, and you'll definitely see this statue of Balto. Now, it was created sometime in 2005. Well, not 2000, 1925. So you'll eventually be able to see this statue of Balto, which, of course, I've only seen pictures of it, but I actually would get a picture of it if you're standing right in front of it. Now, that's basically, me explaining the difference between the actual story of Balto and the movie. I think I like the movie a lot more. The actual Balto story, it's a pretty good story, and it's a pretty good history lesson for those who are learning from history and all that. And I'm sure maybe you've watched the Balto movie when you were a kid in the 90s. Like, I'm sure most of you guys who grew up in the 90s probably remember, watching Balto on DVD as a kid. I remember VHS. I remember watching it on VHS as a kid, and I still find the movie to be, boring at certain parts, and some parts of it was sad, but other parts were pretty good though. And I recommend you check this movie out if you haven't. It's a pretty good movie, and I'm going to definitely guarantee you right now that you'll not be disappointed once you see this movie. So, anyways, with that being said, what did you guys think about this movie? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Did you like the history of Balto? Feel free to leave me what your thoughts are in the comments below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode. And if you're new to this channel, be sure to leave a like, hit the subscribe button if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload. And as always, I'll be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out.